Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ryan, and welcome to Central Park. Thank you so much for joining us here today on another rendition of our 15-minute informal walks through the park, known as our weekly walks. Apologies again for our absence last week. We did have some professional development that we were doing with our team. And thank you so much for being patient and understanding. And as a thank you for your patience, we are going to extend our weekly walk by about 5 or 10 minutes because not only we take a week off, but I got a lot of really amazing photos that I want to share with you. And we're taking a tour or walk around one of the more historic sites and one of the more beautiful ones in Central Park, the lake, an area we've of course visited before, but one that we never get tired of. And of course, we can enjoy it during the end of this summer season, as all the photos we're going to see were taken over the last week here in Central Park. And again, I have a lot of photos to show you of this beautiful landscape. So let's jump right into our 15-minute weekly walk today. Again, thank you so much for joining us today for a weekly walk of the lake with myself, Ryan, on September 22nd, 2021. As we explore around the park, of course, you may see us out here. We're part of the Central Park Conservancy, the people that help care for the park. And our mission is to really preserve and celebrate Central Park as a sanctuary from the pace and pressures of city life, enhancing the enjoyment and well-being of all. Of course, we're using Zoom. Please say hello on the chat features. Let us know maybe ideas for future walks, things that you want to hear us talk about, or just say hello and let us know where you're joining us from. If you do have a question, please use the Q&A feature, and my colleagues Jose and Juan are going to be on the back end answering any questions you might have. Last thing you'll see pop up are a few visitor polls I'll launch throughout the tour, and once those have been publicized, you can vote in them, and then we'll share the results once everybody has voted. Without any further ado, let's jump into our weekly walk. Again, I'm going to be taking about 25 minutes or so for this weekly walk. So hopefully you have the time. If not, you can always catch the recordings, which are put on YouTube afterwards. But let's jump into our walk, a long walk across Central Park, right around 72nd Street to about 75th Street, starting on 72nd and 5th Avenue at a very familiar entrance we're probably used to, one that's known as Engineers Gate. As we do start to make our way into the park, we're entering again on a nice bright sunny day at 5th Avenue and 72nd Street, entering the park right along the Cross Drive and walking by a nice friendly site, an open visitor center kiosk. Some of these kiosks, which can be found on various entrances, like here at 72nd and 5th, as well as 72nd and 8th Avenue, provide free maps to people enjoying the park. And whether you live in New York or you're visiting, it's easy to get lost, so a free map is helpful for everybody. As we do walk by, we can enjoy some of the late summer blooms. There's always something coming into bloom, so even if you don't make it into the park, right in the beginning of summer or even in fall to see foliage and color change, there's always going to be something blooming or something changing color. And here we can see what look like, I believe this is a foxglove. It's always hard to tell what some of these flowers are, but my guess is going to be a foxglove. We can see some beautiful color coming from these. On top of the beautiful color, we can also see some beautiful creatures getting a little bit of enjoyment and use out of these. What we see here, of course, is a bee. When we look at this, though, a lot of people might think it's a bumblebee. That's actually not a bumblebee. It's actually a favorite type of bee of mine. This is a carpenter bee. Carpenter bees, you actually can tell a little bit of, tell a difference between them because of that kind of back abdomen, which is that shiny black part. On bumblebees, you're going to see more of a furry abdomen and body, kind of like how it's all fuzzy looking in this golden spot. But on carpenter bees, you're going to see a smoother black abdomen. So if you keep an eye out for that, you'll notice that a lot of the bees you may have thought were bumblebees are actually carpenter bees, getting their name because they like to dig little holes into wood, trees, things like that, and make a little burrow. But a really fun bee to see around the park. And we can, of course, see plenty of different nature as well as architecture as we walk into this 72nd Street stretch. As we come just into the park a little ways, we'll see the Waldo Hudgens Memorial Bench. The Waldo Hudgens Memorial Bench is honoring one of the Board of Commissioners that was overseeing the Parks Departments back in the really late 19th century and early 20th century. This bench would come in 1934 and has a lot of beautiful decoration and design. One feature of it that's really nice, we can see it does become a lost and found for child shoes that may have dropped off along the way. Hopefully the owner of the shoe came back and didn't have to walk barefoot the rest of the day. But what we can see up top is a nice little element. It is a sundial. This being a sundial sculpted by Paul Manship. And we actually see Paul Manship's work in various areas of the park. If you've ever visited the Tisch Children's Zoo, you might have noticed his work on the Lehman Gates or on the Osborne Gates, which I believe are just outside the ancient playground near the Metropolitan, as well as the Group of Bears statue, which is located just a little north from here. But really cool work that we can see around. This sundial doesn't really work too well anymore because a lot of new growth, both in terms of buildings and trees that have sprung up since this bench's inception in 1934. As we do continue down into the park, we can enjoy the sweeping green views that we have, as well as the shade we're walking underneath. As we come down, we're coming to a familiar body of water, not the one that is our targeted view for the day, since we are going to the lake, but we are going to pass by the conservatory water. And on the way, we can enjoy this much more small, man-made, well, much more obviously, I should say, human-made constructed body of water, but still serving plenty of use for these couple mallards that we see enjoying the water to themselves. As we do walk along, we can of course see how man-made or human-made objects have certainly become really functional for natural wildlife, just like the water fountains, many of which on the backside have special dog drinking fountains, allowing you to lift up the little dustpan and empty out the water and refill it with new water, which you should always do because you never know what birds might be using it as a little bath, like these sparrows taking a nice dip. As we continue walking along in the park, we're going to make our way a little bit more towards the west, leaving behind the conservatory water and walking straight through this nice collection of London plane trees. As we make our way a little bit further west, we come up to an archway that'll serve as a portal or transition to our next destination. This is Trefoil Arch, one that you may have seen in person or on our walks before. Trefoil Arch is pretty unique. I mean, most of the bridges and arches in Central Park are unique, but Trefoil is really special. It has a lot of nice decoration and really helps to welcome us into the landscape we're heading to. What we can notice is some of the beautiful decoration and ornamentation on the outside. One designer, Jacob Ray Mould, you may have heard that name before. He's considered really like a third designer of Central Park, was really influential and important in helping to bring a lot of these beautiful architectural designs and decoration to bridges, arches, and areas like Bethesda Terrace. Here we can see one of these sort of different foil type and floral designs added in here. Trefoil is getting its name from actually one of its openings, which forms a three-leaf type of clover. One thing we can notice that's interesting when we walk into the tunnel, or archway rather, is that it has a very different opening from where we're walking through. We can notice a rounded edge that'll be taking us out to our next landscape, but looking back, we can see where we entered from, getting that three-leaf clover type of shape. This is one of only 2 arches in Central Park that actually has a different opening and different ending. Pretty cool little thing to notice as we walk through. And as we transition through Trefoil Arch, we'll come out into a new landscape, one that's going to be more formal. However, we don't know that yet as we get this nice view of the stairs blocking off our path. As we make our way up, we can enjoy some of the fruit or plants rather that are draping from this Trefoil Arch side. We see a lot of forsythia, which are the plants on the left, these viney ones that turn a beautiful yellow color during the spring, as well as pokeweed, which we can see on the right here. Pokeweed forming a nice vine type plant, but also creating these beautiful, really nice magenta purple colored flower colored stems with berries that turn a nice dark purple and provide a wonderful food source for a lot of wildlife. As we come up towards up the staircase, we get our first sight of the lake, as well as the Loeb Boathouse, which is appropriate because a lot of us, when we think of the lake, one of the first things we think of is boating. And appropriately, we see this statue just outside the Loeb Boathouse. The Loeb Boathouse would open, being constructed around 1953, opening in 1954, and early on serving boats to be rented, as well as allowing people to eat here and providing a small little cafe and restaurant to sustain us during our travels through the park. As we come to the back side of the boathouse, we can enjoy some of the view, one of which you can get a similar one to when dining, or here where we would rent boats from. Renting boats has always been an historic part of Central Park and certainly an historic use for the lake, which we're starting to see its expansiveness now. Renting boats is really inexpensive. It's about $20, as well as a $20 deposit, which is refunded afterwards. So for $20, you can take one of these boats out for an hour. And if you have a family to join you, you can let the kids do all the work, and you can enjoy a nice chauffeured ride throughout the lake here in Central Park. You can also find occasionally a gondola that can be rented out. There is one Venetian gondola. Of course, it's going to cost you more than $40, but if you would like somebody else to do all the work and you don't have kids to steer for you, you can certainly rent that out and have a private special tour throughout the lake. As we do continue around the lake, making our way west past the boathouse, we can enjoy some of the beauty of this area. The open views we'll get in some sections, some which are naturally open, some which may have experienced some tree loss, which provide new views for us to experience. As we do come up to a very special landscape, we'll see the most famous statue in Central Park and one of the most famous statues in the world, coming up to Bethesda Terrace and seeing Bethesda Fountain, which is better known by its true name, the Angel of the Waters Fountain. We don't have a whole bunch of time to talk about this fountain, but of course you can hear about it on our website, on our past weekly walks. Really, there's a lot of information existing all over about this statue. It is called the Angel of the Waters and sculpted by a woman named Emma Stebbins, who was the first woman to receive a New York City Public Parks Commission. As we do come up to this fountain, enjoy the beauty of it, we can see the angel just touching the water up top, racing over this double-decker fountain. And what's really cool about this statue or this fountain is the water itself, because the water that is being supplied to this fountain is the same water that is supplying the body of water, the lake, that we came here today to check out. Really cool, but this is all coming from Croton Aqueduct water, an original drinking water system that was completed in 1842 and would transport water 32 miles north from Croton, Westchester, to the Great Lawn, which originally was the receiving reservoir, down to Bryant Park, which would have been the distributing reservoir, supplying New York City's population with water. Eventually, that would become too small, but it would be plenty to help continue to supplement Central Park with water, adding to the big water bodies and, of course, the fountains that we have in the park today. Of course, don't drink this drinking water because it is looking pretty natural, as a lot of birds, fish, and other wildlife get to it first. But here we can see right where we are in the middle of our course as we start going to the more expansive side of the lake along the west side. As we do stop along this terrace view, though, we can get a nice open view of this back plaza area. And as we come to the edge a little bit more, be careful we don't fall in, we can see some of the visitors to the park right now, like these Canada geese. Canada goose will come down regularly during spring as well as fall, munching on all the grasses, seeds, really whatever they can find around. And as you can imagine, with a lot of animals in Central Park, they're not too shy, so they'll come right up to us. While actually we're walking around, I do want to launch one of the first polls. I meant to do this a little bit earlier, but keep this up for now and see if you have a favorite body of water in Central Park. There's really about 7 bodies of water that we consider bodies of water here in Central Park, all of which are listed on here. So feel free to vote in that, and I'll share the results in a little bit. As we do continue around, though, we can see a nice wide open portion, which is very helpful for those coming to fish here in the lake. And you are allowed to fish here in the lake, catch and release only, of course. But as we walk along the edge, we can see some hidden secrets as well. We'll notice this little kind of metal piece. I believe this is going to be some type of iron bolted piece. I'm not exactly sure with the metal itself, though it might be a cast iron, but I believe that is some type of like iron ore. What we see here, regardless, though, is a piece of metal that once served a little hidden purpose. We do have, of course, rowboating here in the lake, but originally you would have saw a little ferry boat traveling around. This little ferry boat would have docked up at various areas, and for about 5 cents, you could hop on and ride this to one of the 6 different boat landings or drop-off points throughout the lake. This would have actually been one of the spots where this little ferry boat would have stopped, allowing visitors to enter or exit. You can actually see the little hidden kind of port areas or port pieces on the back of these facing the lake, but a little cool piece of history that most people don't really notice. Another thing we can see here that are pretty beautiful on either side of the northern end of Bethesda Terrace are these large framing poles. These large, beautiful cast iron framing poles are adorned with some gonfalons. Gonfalons being these draping flags or banners that we see. These poles have beautiful decoration and ornamentation on them. Many of these designs, again, coming from that man, Jacob Ray Mold, who helped design Trefoil Arch. Saw some of the cool decoration there earlier, helping design some of these, which look immaculately beautiful today. Of course, a lot of this area, stone, the framing poles, really everything was not always so pretty. This is what the park looked like during the late 70s, the 1980s, several financial crises, really little to no visitation to the park, and heavy vandalism led to the park looking like this. Pieces of the stone plaza ripped off, graffiti covering everything. You can't really see because this picture is cut off, but those cast iron poles weren't even in there at this point. They had been removed. We do see eventually, though, a lot of care being restored to Central Park, and we see this being brought back to life. These framing poles, when viewed from up here, help to illustrate their function. They serve as a frame, basically, to the beautiful picture we can see here. And this is a special area in the park where you can see all three of the landscapes that make up Central Park. The formal section of Bethesda Terrace, where we're standing. On the very far back side where the trees are, the wooded section of the Ramble, which is a picturesque landscape. And then right in the middle, the lake, which we're here to see today, a pastoral landscape. One of the only areas in Central Park where all three of these landscapes touch each other. A really cool area to see and a really nice framed picture we have from this top viewpoint. I do want to take a quick moment to flash back just a few weeks ago, because of course the park is always changing. And if you visited the park about a day or so after Hurricane Ida passed through, this is what you would have seen in a lot of areas. Flooding all over, 3.15 inches of water came down in 1 hour. We had a total of about 7.5 inches coming. So you can imagine very, very big changes, a lot of flooding to the park. Thanks to our operations staff, the park really, in almost hours after this, looked really just immaculate and back to normal. Of course, a lot of work goes into helping keep this park looking normal. And thanks to our operations staff, maybe after an hour or two of entering the park, you can see the park going from this back to its original former glory. So we do have to give a big thank you to all of those who are help really caring for us and help caring for the park and allowing it to be beautiful so we can come and see really this beauty firsthand. As we do walk through this unflooded area today, we do wrap around the west a little bit more. And as we're coming around this way, I will end that poll and share the results. And it looks like, ding, 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 we have the lake as a winner. I don't know if you're just voting for that because we're exploring it today, but it is certainly one of the most beautiful landscapes. Not that there is really an ugly landscape in Central Park, but the lake is really special. And it's special for quite a few reasons. You may or may not have known, but the lake is actually the first landscape in Central Park ever created. Might be surprising, but that was the first thing they started with, the lake. And the real purpose of it was actually for something that you would do in the wintertime. We're going to, of course, talk more about that at some point, but since we're in the summertime, we're going to focus on the summer history of the lake. The lake was really used for ice skating, but if you do want to learn more about that, we're going to be coming back to the lake in December, and we're going to focus more on the winter history of it. But for now, we'll enjoy the summer history of the lake. The first landscape in Central Park started being created around 1858 and really opened that same year by 1859 for people to come and go ice skating. Luckily today, though, we don't have cold weather, or maybe you prefer cold weather, but we have a nice sunny day today, and we don't need to think about the winter just yet, even though it is right around the corner. As we do walk around, we can enjoy the beautiful natural shoreline that we still have, enjoying all the green that exists for the few more months we have it. We can see various different plants here, like a lot of these tall reeds, which help block out some of the immediate view, but still leave a lot open for us to enjoy. As we come down the path a little bit longer, we can come up to another pretty historic landscape we'll see here, one which is Bow Bridge. Bow Bridge, certainly the most famous bridge in Central Park, being created, really finished up by about 1862. It is a cast iron bridge, which, like Trefoil Arch, has a lot of beautiful decoration. These featuring quintifoils, or 5-leaf clover type of design. Another design coming from Jacob Ray Mold, that designer, sort of, I like to call him an ornamentationalist. I know that's not really a word, but it's what he is to me. He does the ornamentation, the decoration, and really beautifies everything in the park. Certainly an example here with Bow Bridge, the first cast iron bridge to be created here in Central Park, and one of the first, about the second, to be created in the United States. We can see again that beautiful design, which I always love, acts as a little kind of window. Young children always glance through here as they're coming by, and I figure it's nice to get a different perspective every now and then, crouch down a little bit and see right where we're going to walk to through this little hole. As we do continue around walking west, we can see Bow Bridge from a more beautiful angle, which is its profile sitting just glancing over the lake. Really getting its name, Bow Bridge, from a bow, perhaps an archer's bow, but I like to think more of a violinist's bow or maybe a cello player's bow. A really nice subtle curve we see here. And as we continue walking along the lake, we're coming up to that really big, expansive area. As we do make our way along the water, we can enjoy some of the beautiful plants that, again, block out parts of our view, but leave others open. It is a wild type of growth, so you're not going to have an even manicured shrub here. We're going to have a little bit of just natural all over the place growth. As we do walk along, we can be very thankful today that we have these types of shorelines, because at one point the lake looked very bad. Like many landscapes, either having hard curbing added onto it or really just having a heavily eroded shoreline with little to no aquatic plants to support and prevent erosion and other further damage. Today, we're lucky to have a lot of native natural plants around here. Plants like rose hips can be seen here. We can also see various other different types of colors and flowers, like this touch-me-not, otherwise known as a spotted jewelweed. I always love looking at flowers and things like that because you'll notice little details you might not have. Did you notice that there's actually 3 little ants in this photo? There's 2 little ants right here inside of this flower, which is probably about the size of maybe the top of your pinky. And on top of that, we have another little ant just on the leaf over here, which I just noticed right now. But taking a moment, being a little mindful and looking at the smaller little things in life you might overlook really help to point out just further exploration and fun that we can see. Coming down, we can see a little bit of color coming from what I believe is a Joe Pye weed. They can look very different depending the time, ranging from like a beige, dark brown color to this cool purplish kind of color here, but a really nice native shoreline plant. Beyond that, we have lots of tall reeds, plants like common reeds and phragmites, otherwise known as mile-a-minute weeds because of how tall they grow. We'll add a little bit of kind of depth and range to the growth and our view again as we come through, giving us nice silhouettes against that cloudy but still sunny sky. Making our way around, we can enjoy other little additions like this island. The lake did undergo some major restorations, receiving some in the early 2000s, about a 3-year project from about 2000 to 2003, in which the lake did need to be dredged. We did need to transport and move all those turtles and fish to another side while this area was cared for. And we do see some other additions coming along the way during that time, like the addition of this island, which helped to really create a little bit of blockage around the lake, but really give all of those pieces, give not all of them, but some of the wildlife a really great area to escape. And with all of the use of Central Park, especially areas like this, the lake and Bethesda Terrace, a little bit of privacy for animals is much needed. As we continue walking along, of course, we're seeing people boating around here. Boating, again, a very fun and common activity, and this being the only one where you can actually boat out on the lake. There are several other bodies of water that at one point were used for boats, but today we only see the lake being used. I do actually want to launch another poll here. I noticed I didn't change the headline topic, so you can ignore favorite topics. But for this question, I just want to know if you've ever sailed or rowed a boat in Central Park. This is going to be a 2-parter, so I'm going to ask if you've ever rowed or sailed a boat in the park, and if it was a rowboat, if it was a remote control sailboat. We didn't see any out, but at Conservatory Water, that's where the Curbs boathouse exists and where you can get the remote control sailboats. So I'll let you vote in that as we walk around. Of course, in the lake, we're not going to see any remote control boats, but just regular boats. What we can also see when we take a closer look is something just sitting along the west side shoreline. That is a boat landing. Like I mentioned before, a ferry boat once traveled around here. Beyond that, there was also several stops where that boat, as well as free-range boaters, could pull up on and dock for a moment. We do have 5 of those boat landings which can be seen today, and we're actually going to see about 3 of them. We'll see this one from far away. We're going to see another one in just a moment, and then towards the end of our tour, we'll pass by a 3rd one. But you can see 5 total of these 6 that once existed around the lake. One of which will not return because the below boathouse currently exists where it used to. As we do travel up a little bit and hang a right, we're going to go down a path which a lot of people probably don't really even notice or don't travel down. But if you ever do notice this path, I highly implore you to travel down it because it is one of my favorite little small subsection paths in Central Park. Coming through this way, especially during summer, lush green all over, bringing us out to a few small open areas, a nice rock where we can sit down, get a little view out over this expansive part of the lake. Coming around further, we'll pass by a bunch of other beautiful color coming around. Again, depending the season, there's always something to see. And right now we're seeing some cardinal flower appearing here. Appropriate that cardinal flower is red, but you can see different color cardinal flowers. Actually, a week or 2 ago, or 2 weeks ago, when we explored the Northwoods, we saw some purple cardinal flower. As we travel beyond, we can come through this really just lush green packed areas. I love this spot where it looks like we're in a tunnel of green. Can't see anything beyond that. But we also have to know that really things change, and we can go from an area that's really green like this to one that's a little bit more open. As we come down here, we can see somewhere that received a bit of damage from Hurricane Ida. This area looks like we had quite a large tree that stood here. I'm not sure exactly what tree this used to be, but unfortunately it's no longer here. It did cause a little bit of damage we can see as we come by. This whole shoreline, of course, receiving the fall, the flooding, the wiping, the erosion. So unfortunately, as we walk by this path, we go from that lush green to a little bit of open space. This area, of course, will make a return. It will grow back, it will revitalize itself, and we'll get that lush green returning. But I think things like this are important to realize, the simple things, the obvious things too, that nothing is forever and that, all good things must end. That's something that I think is obvious in life, but I think it's something that we can really pick up on even in parks, even with simple things that we might not really think about. Of course, family, friends, loved ones, and things like that are things we have to cherish and not take for granted. But sometimes we do take for granted little things like a tree in the park. So I always like to use these as learning opportunities to remember to enjoy everything while we have them, even if it's something insignificant that you might not typically notice, like that tree in the park. So we'll enjoy what we have today, enjoy what's still around, and as we walk down, we'll immediately come to some more lush green. So certainly not a long reminder of the damage. We still have plenty of life existing here, and we're New York strong, so we're not going anywhere. As we do come down, we'll come to my favorite boat landing that you'll find around. One of 5 that exist today, this one being called Wagner Cove. Wagner Cove, really cool one. It's named after Robert Wagner, who was a mayor, New York City mayor from 1954 to 1965. This really cool wood constructed boat landing once looked very different. And that's because these boat landings, of course, originally coming in the 19th century, a lot being made of wood, were lost over time. They would eventually get replaced. There was actually a big impetus to replace these in the 1970s. And we do eventually see a project really coming underway. Unfortunately, though, the project we see taking place doesn't use original designs. And we see kind of newly created boathouse or boat landing designs being implemented. When we restore stuff in the park today, when the Conservancy does, which formed in 1980, a little bit after these restorations, we try to get things as close as possible to the original designs that Box, Olmsted, and Mold had, while still accommodating current safety precautions, regulations, as well as functionality and changing uses for things in the park. Luckily, we were able to restore these boat landings in the future. Not too long ago, actually, in 2015, May of 2015, we'd see this new boat landing project starting up, and we'd see a return to life with these boat landings being designed on their original designs. And it's really amazing It's really difficult to find old pictures, and I wasn't able to find ones of this boat landing in particular, but looking back on original historic design photos, it's amazing to see how exactly meticulous and accurate these designs are, all having been constructed by our wonderful rustic team here in Central Park, but really being a spitting image of a boathouse you would have found here back in the late 1800s. As we continue up, we'll walk past this plaque, which denotes this is spot's dedication to Robert Wagner, the mayor I mentioned from 1954 and 1965. And as we come up, we are going to make our way along the long stretch of the west side of the lake, are going to be coming to our final stop. I know we're coming into about 25 minutes or so of our walk, and we are going to be wrapping up shortly. Thank you again for everybody for hanging around. As we do continue down, I do again notice a big theme on this walk, which is human-made objects really being taken over and used by nature. We certainly see that with things like the mallards in the conservatory water, the sparrows in the back of that water fountain. We're seeing the lake being a human-made arena for ice skating, but today serves for wildlife all over. We're seeing things right here like bird's nest in a traffic light. I love seeing these little nests spilling out of traffic light statues or different things in the park. It's really a perfect example of what the park is, that blend of just urbanization, architecture, art with naturalistic beauty and function. Certainly see some sparrows enjoying this nest here. And as we continue around, we'll enjoy some beautiful views of our own of Bow Bridge. Pretty nice area for a nest for those birds to enjoy some of these little views around. And as we continue walking up the path, we'll walk under some nice shade of this wisteria pergola, a nice little random feature of the pathway along the west side of the lake. As we do continue under this, we'll enjoy the symmetry, a feature I love for all of this architecture. All the wooden beams just spark up some curiosity in my mind. I just love the intricate, really overlaying of all of them. As we do continue down, we'll come up to another one of those boat landings, a beautiful sight to see, each one being very different in design and even material. As we do come up to this one, I will share the results. And we can see actually it looks like almost about a tie, but a lot of people have had the opportunity to sail or row a boat here in Central Park, which is really cool. I haven't had the opportunity to go row a boat yet. Something on my bucket list that I will hopefully get done soon. A little overdue considering I work here at Central Park. And then we see for that part two, it looks like a lot of people have made it out on a rowboat. Not too many people on a remote control sailboat. So maybe there's something to add to your bucket list for Central Park to do. And we of course have some people, about 25% of us, which were able to do both. Really cool. It looks like that's a pretty rare group. So if you've been able to do both, you definitely have a little bit more park experience than maybe myself, at least in the boating realm of things. As we continue past this boat landing, we're going to make our way to our final stop for the tour today. And as we come down this little secretive path, we're going to come to an area that's very well known, but maybe not too often visited. It's one of my favorite sections in the park, certainly a favorite view of mine for the lake. And as we walk down, we'll see why. Coming through this nice tight path, getting some views along the way, we'll come out to a rock face as well as some type of structure on our left. What we see on our left is one of the most beautiful pavilions you will see in Central Park. I love the rustic pavilions, but this one is gorgeous. This is Ladies Pavilion as it's known today. Ladies Pavilion was another design of that gentleman, Jacob Ray Mould. It's amazing seeing him design bridges and arches, stonework at Bethesda Terrace, and cast iron architecture like Bow Bridge and Ladies Pavilion. A really amazing work, a jack of all trades, you could say, having designed many beautiful pieces throughout Central Park. This one actually originally wasn't in the park though. It was originally found at 59th Street and 8th Avenue, and it was actually a trolley stop. Created in 1871, it once served as a nice, beautiful, and shady spot for people waiting for the trolley to wait near Central Park. A beautiful design of Jacob Ray Mould, but one that would eventually be moved here sometime in, I believe in the 20th century, placed up here at what is known today as Ladies Pavilion. Ladies Pavilion sitting on a very beautiful little rock island peninsula, which is known as Hearn's Head. Hearn's Head really relating to the shape of kind of like a heron or one of those bigger shorebirds. As we come down here, we can get a few views looking up north to that Bankrock Bay corner and northern section of the lake, as well as getting a nice expansive view all around, lower pass to sit on the sunny rocks so we can feel like turtles basking in the sun, as well as beautiful views of the southern edge. This is a favorite view of mine from our walk today, standing on one of the higher points on Hearn's Head and Ladies Pavilion, looking over that really combination of all the park has to offer. A little bit of that rocky natural topography, one thing that would have been here before the park was created, the human-made pastoral elements like the lake. We can see some open lawn over here, some nice green meadowy types of areas. And then of course, what would the park be without a bunch of trees, woodlands, and natural lake seeming areas? That blended border with the city creates such a beautiful painting of a real life picture we have here. As we do come to an end for our walk, we'll take a couple last views. The last one being some of the company that we're sharing this spot with. Like I said, sitting out on these rocks along the water, we feel like what we're seeing, a turtle just basking here in the sun. And you can see here, we got even some stacking up, even though there's plenty of room for all of us to hang out here in Central Park. There's plenty of small locations like this that are seldom visited. Sometimes they are pretty popular, but again, there's always something new to explore in Central Park. So if you're feeling like the turtle on the right and you're in too crowded of an area, try exploring something you haven't seen before in the park. And there's plenty of suggestions available on our website, or if you run into one of us in the park or stop by a visitor center or kiosk, certainly feel free to pick our brains. We'll end our walk with one last beautiful view from Ladies Pavilion and Hearn's Head, capturing a little bit of everything we can see and have seen on our tour today. A walk through the beautiful landscape, the natural trees, open meadows, and the formal architecture of Bethesda Terrace, as well as that expansive area of the lake. People boating, of course, taking pictures of the beautiful view to remember it. And of course, a little turtle, like on the bottom left right here, just stretching out and enjoying the beautiful park that we're so lucky to visit. With this, it will bring us to the end of our walk. I want to thank you everybody so much for joining us. Thank you for letting me do a much longer weekly walk version. Hopefully I didn't hold you up too much, but again, thank you for the support. As you know, the park needs us, so we need the park. So what is it about Central Park that you need the most? You can let us know with the hashtag the park needs us, and we'll feature it on our social channels. Of course, we have plenty of more virtual and in-person tours, as well as private tours. So if you would like to book a private tour, you can do so on our website or contacting us through our email. You can check the chat box for ways to do that, as well as for upcoming links for tours and programs, both in person and virtual. But again, no matter how you want to explore the park, whether it be on a tour led by us or even by yourself, there's plenty of ways to enjoy and experience the park. However you do experience the park, though, we're happy that you're getting out there and seeing it. Thank you again so much for joining us. I'm going to keep it open a few moments for any last minute questions. But other than that, thank you so much. And from all of us here at the Central Park Conservancy, stay safe, be well, and we'll see you soon.